Hey guys, so sorry I'm late, but I'm doing half this video in the US and half in Europe, so it is what it is. All right, let's first off start with the gossip, I think. Let's do that. I wanted to tell you guys, a lot of influencers found it very odd that Sheena Shea was friends with Janet, given the fact that Janet allegedly had a threesome with Sheena Shea's ex-boyfriend, Max. All right, so I kind of feel like Max, her ex-boyfriend, who I just referred to, looks a lot like Vanderpump Villa's Marciano, who allegedly hooked up with, although he's backtracked, but I think he was made to backtrack, hooked up with two of the Secret Lives of Mormon wives, married housewives. Guy gets around. Anyway, I feel like Marciano looks a lot like Max, which would make me uncomfortable if I was Brock Davies, that Sheena Shea's friends with Marciano, because he looks so much like her ex-boyfriend. I mean, am I wrong? I don't think so. So the hookup rumors between Janet and Max was a scene implied on Vanderpump Rules when there was like a fight with this other girl named Dayna and Sheena Shea. And anyway, it's a long time ago on Vanderpump Rules. It turns out that Janet Caperna set the record straight that she didn't hook up with Max or have a threesome with them. And so Sheena Shea still should be her friend. Let me play it for you.
He does.
Max gets around.
He does.
Because he and Kristen have hooked up too, right?
Yeah.
That's
I was
public,
first.
right?
I was going to put that out there.
And I have never hooked up with Max. I see people saying like, oh, Janet had a threesome with Max and Dayna. Never.
Did you
Never
want
happened.
to?
I wanted to hook up with Dayna. I've never been attracted to Max. It's true.
Well, that's interesting. So I guess Janet Caperna is bisexual. Who knew? Sort of strange because Janet Caperna went on Watch What Happens Live and had the most vanilla responses to the places that Jason and her have sex. They were like, what is the most wildest place you've ever had sex? And Janet's like, a hotel? All right, well, let's move on to the next topic. So I asked a friend of mine if, the rumors about Jesse being gay or bi or whatever were true, because it's been obviously going around, as you can see above, although this is meant to be funny. And my friend said, nope, Jesse, I don't know about his past, but certainly now he's straight as a blade of grass. Let me show you what he wrote me. They're both disgustingly straight, unfortunately. Disgustingly straight. My friend's gay. He thought Jesse was hot. Brittany Cartwright has been teasing, quite literally, her new man that she's got a crush on, and she says she's really into. There they are at the gym working out together. It looks like maybe he's a trainer. Could be. She's looking good. But I mean, does this look like that guy's arm? Will Gittin. Okay, I approve. Jesse's girlfriend, Lacey Nichol, said this to people. She broke her silence. I positively and politely declined to film just for an array of my own personal reasons, but I am very proud of them. So no discussion of cease and desist or any of that in this People article, says Lacey. She says, it takes a lot of gumption and chutzpah to put yourself out there and show those moments on a reality show, in other words. Last year, when they so graciously invited me on to film, I don't think I was there emotionally with my own mental health. So she declined. However, I kind of feel like she might be open to it in the future. We'll have to see. She has severe PTSD. Give a little shout out to Reality Blurb. It was a horrific crime, Lacey shared. We were taken by a gang of men, and the charges included human trafficking, kidnapping with the intent of sodomy and rape, assault with a deadly weapon, burglary, carjacking, theft. There were 22 charges. That's a lot of stuff. That's a really huge crime to be the victim of. Just saying. I mean, it was so lightly said in this article. I was kind of shocked by that. You'd think they would go a little deeper on this one, but they didn't. The thing is that this would mean that I guess some guy or a group of guys or a gang somehow saw Lacey and said, we want to kidnap her and make her into some sort of paid sex traffic worker and maybe take her over the border or something. I don't know, but this is Taken level stuff, right? The movie Taken. I just don't see Jesse as this type of guy. You?
I don't know who you are.
I wish this was my
If
boyfriend.
you're looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills.
Wouldn't you think she'd want to
Skills I've
protect her
acquired
like
over
this?
a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
So hot.
If you let my daughter go now, that'll be the end of it.
You have a 96-hour
What?
to never finding her.
What happened to her literally is exactly what happened in Taken.
Where is she? I will find you. And I will kill you.
It's so badass. Not having the tools to cope with such a devastating incident, Lacey said she swallowed it and became very unwell, developing 7 autoimmune diseases and being put on a plethora of medications to help her, quote, exist. After the incident, Lacey testified in court, which she felt was worse than the crime. It's the after effect that kind of boggles you, she explained. But the testimony is when I really decided to start learning about why I was so unwell. Oh, God, poor girl. Let me play you something.
Lacey is a devoted mother to her adorable daughter, Coco, a mental health advocate, philanthropist, a childhood trauma expert, a podcast host of Shame to Sparkle, as well as her own foundation. Lacey has survived and triumphed through deeply personal trauma, from being raised around addiction, being abducted by a gang in her 20s, battling 7 autoimmune diseases, divorce, and more. Lacey is a true example of using her pain as purpose, and through her vulnerability has helped countless women navigate trauma, combat shame, shift their mindset, and advocate for themselves, and overall make them feel less alone. So welcome, Lacey.
Welcome.
We are so excited to have you.
Intro. I always love the intro. I'm like, oh, so many things.
It's
well-being. I was obviously a victim of a horrific crime. I don't obviously attribute that to growing up. That was just wrong timing. But I ended up with 7 autoimmune diseases. I ended up with PCOS and endometriosis and adenomyosis and infertility and all of these things. And I was like, why me? And then I started to heavily research, it's not like I was shamed or bad luck or broken. It's, it was a product of this environment. It's like the fish in the tank that will not grow. So my whole spiel now is really teaching women, specifically, no offense to men, but women is my audience, on how so heavily our experiences and our traumas and our loss and our pain and our things really do add up into our emotional and physical well-being. So we don't feel alone and we don't feel broken. And, if you have an autoimmune disease or if you have a cancer, 1 in 2 women are getting cancer, a small percentage that's related to genetics. Yeah. But really experiencing trauma does change our epigenetics and it changes our cellular data. And I think we weren't really taught that in school. So now I'm just trying to chug around and teach people that.
Did you guys know that Lisa Vanderpump literally was on Baywatch nights playing, I believe, herself in real life, but as the country club's event coordinator that knows everybody's dirty laundry and is conniving behind the scenes in the most evil way? Did you guys know this? Let me play this for you.
In good hands as usual, right, Cross?
Life is sweet, Margo.
Margo.
Nothing went on at the Mission Club that Margo, the social director, didn't know about. We figured if Grant Stiles was able to prey on women there, Margo was somehow in on the action. All we had to do was drop a few hints to her about Ryan's availability, and the trap would be set.
Oh my God. How real is this?
Well, Miss Fuller, nice to see you.
Margo, hi. I'd like you to meet a very dear friend of mine, Rihanna.
Rihanna, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Hello, it's nice to meet
Hi.
you. I've just spotted the bar. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to go grab a drink. See you later. Poor thing. Her husband died about 6 months ago. He left her a fortune, but
Poor thing.
money can't fix a broken heart.
Yeah, I'm sure she's
Just ask me.
brokenhearted.
Well, I think I'm going to go play a little game of gin, see if I can get even richer.
Good luck.
Thanks. See you later.
Look at Lisa. Now I know what to do. I'm going to get the hot gigolo guy to get her money with a note. Aha. Yes, evil. Yes, evil Margo, Lisa Vanderpump. This is so true to life. So Nia went on her Hold My Crown podcast and announced that she's in her third trimester with her current pregnancy. She's pregnant again. And that they sold their condo that we've watched on the show and they bought a new house. She made it clear that she doesn't like to talk negative about anyone on the cast, and that's really a struggle for her. She's also struggling with social media and reading comments, which you kind of have to do if you want to really be good at the game. She went a little missing during Watch What Happens Live, which upset Danny Bucco because they usually talk a lot, and she kind of went MIA a little, and he was upset about that. But they got through it because he's a supportive partner. And Kristen Doty was really happy with her Watch What Happens Live performance because Andy, for the first time ever, was really supportive to her, mainly because she was pregnant too. And I think he's bonded with Kristen on a new front with that. I don't know. I think she's going to struggle a little bit, Nia, with all this. Either that or she's just going to be kind of kept around because she's good looking and Danny is kind of fun to, I guess, target. I hate to say it, but we do know there's going to be a massive cast shakeup because the ratings were low, and so maybe they won't make the next round. We'll see. She seems very nice. I think she's on the wrong show, honestly. But, she got famous and she's made it through 2 seasons. She's going to not really participate too much with all the press because of her pregnancy. And perhaps that's why she wasn't promoting the show so much on her social media, was kind of afraid to get on social media. Some of the fans noticed that. I thought maybe it had to do with the fact that, the cast outed that her husband was an alcoholic. Anyway, I'll leave that with you to ponder. Okay, so let's do this recap, shall we? Hi, you guys. So I just got to Europe and I'm jet lagged and I just got into my interim Airbnb and I'm wrecked. So I'm going to make this quick, this part, the recap. All right, so we open the episode and Zach is being picked up at the airport and he's been on a road trip from Texas and Kansas with his new man, Benji, who he's trying to get serious with and be boyfriends with, but they weren't sure how they felt about it because Benji was in a 10-year marriage with another man who I think was older, from what Zach said on the show, and they've been separated 2 years, but this guy that Benji's divorcing may not know Zach exists. So I guess now, of course, that he's on national TV talking about it, he will. But anyway, they've gone official. So that's the first part. The second part was Nia and Michelle having a play date together, and she's talking about how Danny Bucco, triggered people because of his behavior drinking, and that, other than an apology he made, he might need to do more, is the gist. And then we see Michelle talking about how she wants to marry Aaron, not right now, but soon, and her daughter seems open to it, and we're just like, oh my God, Michelle, way to beat. So then we jump to a scene at a burger joint, and it's Danny Bucco, it's Jason Caperna, and it's Luke, Kristen Doty's Luke. And they are sitting down to let him know that Jasmine still is triggered by him, I guess, touching her butt and saying, get daddy a beer or something. And she's still triggered over this. And even though he's apologized, he needs to do more. Jason somehow is standing up for Jasmine because they're friends, and the lawyer in him is coming out, I guess the sexual harassment employment lawyer, I don't know. And then there's a whole conversation where it looks like Jason is trying to get Danny to admit that he has a drinking problem, and Danny doesn't want to do it. And there's a tug of war, and he's like, are you being a friend? What is happening here? And Jason's doubling down on the fact that he expected Danny to own it a little more than he is in the scene, basically, and Danny isn't. So now they're at odds. Because now Jason thinks maybe he does have a drinking problem because he's not just saying, oh, well, maybe I drank too much, oh, well. He's fighting, no, I wasn't. I was exhausted. So that's what's kind of going on here. At the end of the scene, Danny's like, is this Janet or is this Jason coming to me? Because it doesn't feel like Jason. Because just a week ago, he was making it not a big deal that this even occurred with the tequila. So I'm confused. But he's like, I got to do something. So now what does he do? So Jax is in rehab. He's about to see his son. He's crying. He's like, I want to apologize to Brittany. I feel like a bunch of bricks have been lifted, but he doesn't say what. And he's crying over not seeing his son for, 17 plus days. And that's what happens. So then we see Britt, and she's talking about how Jax is still doing awful things to her. He's now using the surveillance camera system that he covered up so he could cheat with women in their house to now watch her and let her know that he's seeing everything she's doing. And then also he does, I guess, see his son briefly, but that's it. And he doesn't seem to have changed. And she's like, he's awful. And he's rented a condo next to Tom Schwartz so that he can party. So Danny does meet with Jasmine and they work it out because he listens to how she feels as a lesbian and people don't take her relationship seriously with her lover. And it's frustrating for her because she's in a serious relationship with a woman and like people feel like they can kind of treat them like, they're ready to make a porn any moment because they're lesbian and or they don't respect, the boundaries of their relationship. And so as a result of that, he sees their side and they make up. And then what happens is Kristen Doty goes to lunch with Jesse and Luke says that Jason was coming in hot on Danny Bucco, and Kristen's like, wait, those are my friends, and she wants to protect them. Yeah. So she's like, my mama bear is coming out now because she's like, yeah, because Nia and Kristen are really tight, especially since they're both pregnant together. As you heard earlier in the video, they've been through a lot together. So anyway, Kristen's like, no way, Jose. And so she brings up a rumor that Zach told her that Jason doesn't wear his wedding ring most of the time. And so why doesn't he wear his wedding ring? Well, Jesse chimes in, look, it could mean nothing. I didn't wear my wedding ring a lot. It didn't mean anything. And she's like, yeah, it could. But because he's being so judgy, I thought I'd return the favor. Then we jump to Britt's shark party. And Jason apologizes to Danny for being overreactory and kind of a dick. And Danny immediately accepts it because he likes Jason so much. They all think Janet's behind it anyway. And then Lala and Sheena are there at the party and they tell Jesse off for calling Michelle a whore and all these things. And Jesse apologizes for the whore part, but not the cheating and lying part. And that's pretty much where that goes. But Lala's like, I want nothing to do with you. You're a narcissist, and walks off. Now, obviously, she was triggered because of Randall. But, I mean, definitely trying to land a new spot in a new show, I'd say. Jason finds Kristen and Luke at the party and is like, why are you saying that I'm like trying to cheat on my wife because I take my ring off? And Kristen's like, frankly, because you were going for Danny and Nia so hard. And I was like, I'm going to talk about rumors about you so you can see what that's like. And he was like, okay. But I don't. And then Janet just kind of like asks for an apology and Kristen won't give it and they leave it there and that's it. And then we jump to a scene where Brittany says that the real reason that she was upset at Jax when she let him see the kid that I talked about earlier, the real reason that Britt is upset with Jax is he's not being financially responsible. He rented another apartment next to Schwartz while she's paying for a rental house to like shoot in and be in because he was in their family home. And now he's abandoning the family home, leaving her in the house rental that she still has to pay for and going and renting something else. So creating another financial burden on the family besides the family home, the house she's renting, and now the condo that he rented. So she's like, he's so irresponsible. He didn't even talk to me about it. And she's like, I'm done. I'm filing for divorce. And I think that would have been the nail in the coffin for me too. So then we jump to Jax's Studio City location, which is dead. And Tom Schwartz walks in and meets with Brittany. And she tells him that Jax hasn't paid the mortgage for 4 months. But he's rented a condo, and now she thinks all the money problems are going to fall on her for the family. But what's worse is he didn't tell Brittany, so she could have saved the house and her credit because she's on the mortgage, and he didn't tell her because he wants to force her to sell the house, she thinks. It's pretty bad. And then they go through a montage of how awful he is, like generally, and it's like, ew, gross, ick. Then we move on, and they show like the big teaser coming up, and what was really interesting about that for me was the fact that Jesse's going to call Aaron out on whether or not he cheated with Michelle. By the way, Aaron is so weird looking. Why does he have buggy eyes? They're like, Like, so what? Like that. All right, on that note, I gotta go. I'm losing my mind.